Lord, a podcast? How and where do I start? The fact that I'm actually speaking in this microphone is a manifestation of God's promise to use the trumpet in my voice as a wake-up call, to call people out of darkness into the light, to alert people who are on the edge. I believe we have begun, so here we go. This is On the Edge, a podcast that will help you navigate the ebbs and flows of life. It will encourage, empathize, inspire, educate, and empower the listener. It will push someone over the edge to their destiny or pull someone back from the edge of their demise. On the Edge will be a voice for others. You will hear stories of overcoming through and from death, financial and health challenges, insecurities, and stories of pursuing destiny, healing, and restoration. So here we go. The premise of this podcast will ask and get answers to this and many other questions. What has been your impactful on the edge moment, and how did it change you? Now, understandably, there could be many answers as we all go through various seasons of life that impact us. I'll start with one of mine in this first episode, and throughout the season of this podcast, you will hear more from me and others. My most recent On the Edge moment could be titled On the Edge of Indecision and Destiny. Anybody ever been there? Well, the problem with that season is that the length of time it takes you to get from your indecision to your destiny is all up to you. It's up to you and your mindset. Back in 2022, November, I felt in my spirit a word that came from God which said, it's time to leave your current job. Now, mind you, I was coming up on 20 years of being with that job, so that word was not received well because I knew it wasn't saying, leave your job, go sit back on the beach and sip Mai Tais. Nope. This meant it was time to move to a new season of life. God had more for me to do. From November of 2022 till the time that I actually did retire in December of 2023, I experienced a journey of ups and downs, ebbs and flows, all rooted in my indecision. I mean, it wasn't as if I was like, oh, yay, I'm so excited. I was almost 58 years old, and it just didn't seem to make common sense to the natural eye or my own mind that I would be starting something new. But I kept being reassured. I kept being prompted that this was what God wanted me to do. Have you ever been there? Knowing that God is speaking, but yet questioning in your flesh, is this really what I'm supposed to do? And never mind that you have family or friends who are questioning you as well. That is not helpful. Well, I endured a whole year of going back and forth, playing double dutch with my heart and my mind and my faith, saying, oh, I believe, and yet I don't believe. Oh, I believe, but yet not acting on it. And oh, I believe, but yet not moving in the direction of making that decision final by planning or by looking for other jobs or by setting up future plans to make sure that our family was going to be financially stable. I really feel like some of that would have taken a while to get squared away anyway, but I needed to do something that said I believed what God said instead of just sitting around thinking about it. Did you know that just thinking about it never gets it done? Well, let me tell you, it doesn't. So it wasn't till, let's be honest, around July of the next year that I finally got busy acting on what I believed. I had the nerve to check back with God and ask if he had changed his mind. Needless to say, I received the same word. Only now I'm putting a little speed to my action because, for goodness sake, it is July of the year I'm supposed to be retiring from that job, and I still have not made any efforts or moves to plan and act like I believed. So with that fire under my behind, I started pursuing after making sure that things were set in place for the retirement. Like making sure that I knew exactly what I had as far as pension, as far as life insurance, as far as anything that was due to me. I had not yet told anyone from my job. I had not told my boss. Of course, I had spoken with my husband. Then came another word. As long as you don't tell anyone, you have an out. Ouch. In other words, I was still playing it safe. I was making some moves, but still with a little trepidation, still a little fear, still a little uneasiness. In August, I mentioned to my boss that I was considering retiring, with air quotes as if you can see me, to help aid in my double-mindedness. She gave me an option. It was out of the kindness of her heart, for sure, not from any negative motives. She offered me part-time remote. Well, of course, this appeased my flesh worry that was concerned about the financial standing of my family while leaving a job and not having another one. So I was thinking, oh, this must be a plan from God. With part-time, it'll give me more time to pursue other interests like this podcast, like writing more books, and still have money coming in. Sounds like a plan. So I said yes to her proposal, and she set things in motion to ask the powers that be if that's something that could be done. And I went on about my business, thinking I had already started pursuing after the will of God for my life. Hallelujah. Little did I know, that was the equivalent of Sarah giving Hagar to Abraham. If you don't know that story, read it in Genesis. Anyways, about a month later, she came back to me via email to say that the powers that be had said she would not be able to change the position to part-time without running the risk of leaving it there and not being able to bring it back to full-time when necessary. See, the point of the offer was I was going to stay part-time until I found something solid or figured out exactly what I wanted to do. But this email said, I'm so sorry. Due to financial constraints, we're unable to change that position to part-time, or we risk not being able to put it back to full-time. So I'm going to need you to decide whether you're going to continue on working here full-time or what your decision will be. Well, by this time, that email did not necessarily make me mad or shock me, since I had already had a clear voice in my spirit saying, that's not what I told you to do. I told you to leave. I closed that email. Well, first I replied back to her and said, I will get back to you in a few days with my response. But I already knew the answer. One funny thing happened that day as I went back to my personal emails. There's this monthly or weekly devotional that I get in email form, and the title of the one for that day was God Said What He Meant. Whew. Okay, so many different confirmations came like that to assure me that this is what I was supposed to be doing, and I needed to do it God's way. I closed that email knowing that part-time remote was not the option, and you would think that I would have just went back to the email and responded that day, but I did not, so therefore more delay. What ended up happening is that my boss went on vacation, then she got sick and was away from work for 2 more weeks. Therefore, 2 more weeks went by, and I did not even get to her office until October to tell her that I was retiring in December. So all of this could have been avoided if I had just done what I needed to do and said what I needed to say and moved on the word that I had received almost a year ago. That's the biggest lesson I've learned. As quickly as possible, you need to close the gap between the word you receive and the manifestation. It came to a day in October that I repented to God for being double-minded and made an appointment on that same day to see my boss. In the time frame from August to October, I had started applying at different jobs with no response, no answers, and still no job. And I'm supposed to be leaving this job in 3 months. On the day that I was to meet with my boss to tell her the definite no, I will not be staying, I remembered a particular company that I had looked into over a year before and actually found quite intriguing, but God's Spirit reminded me that I had forgotten to apply to them. The application process has definitely changed over the last 20 years. It's a lot quicker. You can do it from your phone even. You just get online, find the job you're applying for, point, click, upload your resume, and you're done. So I did that during my lunchtime on the day that I was to be meeting with my boss. And I went on about my lunch and then went back to work. No more than an hour later, a director in the company called me and asked for an interview. And long story short, I got the interview that day, got offered the job the next week, And I'm quite certain there is a connection between me repenting from being double-minded and me being able to remember to apply for a job that God already had waiting for me. Proof of that is found in James 1:8 that says a double-minded man is unstable and cannot receive anything. That's all God was waiting on from me. Later that afternoon, before I even had the interview, I met with my boss. I told her what my decision was. She was not surprised. She once again, out of the kindness of her heart, left the door open for me to come back anytime I wanted to. But she accepted my resignation and then asked me when I wanted to leave. She didn't even have to do that. She could have easily said, okay, your last day is today. I requested to stay till the end of the year and she agreed. I am so thankful for the favor of God. I'm also thankful and amazed at the peace that I was experiencing, even though I did not know where my next steps were going to be. I'm definitely a person that likes to have all the plans lined up before I move. So to be doing this without having that and yet still have a peace and a joy, I know it was all wrapped up in my obedience because I already knew God to be faithful. Understandably, this new adventure had me on the edge, but at the end of it all, I got the job. I retired from that 20-year position with a joy and a peace, knowing that I was making the right step. And then I had an increase in my faith in a God who never fails. Phew. Oh, sorry to aside on this microphone, but I'm come to the end of the first podcast, and I don't know what's next. I'm trusting God to use this podcast as a ministry to help his people. I close with this. Don't be moved or allow people, circumstances, or situations to deter you from accomplishing your God-given destiny. I hope you will enjoy hearing more from this inspiring ministry. I would ask that you like, subscribe, and share if this has been a blessing to you. My prayer is not for an increase in numbers of people applauding me, but an increase in numbers of hearts turned towards the will of God. This is On the Edge.